Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin.review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and CoinKite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run CoinKite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the cold card and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin Review. The only XFuel limits are your imagination by @BTC. This is a great dude to follow on Twitter. He's killing it with some hardware knowledge that he's dropping there. Very rare that you find people who actually understand hardware on Twitter, and he's one of them. So follow him. I enjoy some of his commentary. So today I have with me great little panel here, Mr. Rijndael.
Hello. Great to be back.
For the people that can't see, he's wearing a caterpillar hat. And like anybody who's waiting for an opcode, he's got a patience of a elephant.
This is like a manufacturer of agricultural equipment. I don't know what you're talking about.
There you go. Well, it is a bulldozer opcode.
That's right.
So we have with us Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul with more free time now.
Hello. Yeah, show me your hobbies.
You should hear about podcasting. It's very cool.
It's a great way to burn a few hours on the
that's right.
Wednesday morning.
That's right. And also gather as much hate as possible in a single container. There is nothing like giving your opinion in audio form for people to quote when you get something wrong or they just hate you. It's fantastic. Mr. Rob, hello and welcome back.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm rocking my Citadel Dispatch hat today to do some equal opportunity trolling.
So look at that.
On the other Bitcoin podcasts.
For the people that can't see, we're all rocking our nipples out.
Yeah, we're all shirtless, but wearing different hats.
It's just like that South Park a skit where the guy drops the pockets on the nipples and starts rubbing them. That's essentially what we do through the whole thing. And let me get into the housekeeping here. Entrepreneurial editor wanted for a new Bitcoin media publication project for technical and industry topics. Oh shit, this one is mine. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just looking for somebody who's an editor and knows what they're doing. And maybe we put together a publication for industry and technical review of things in the Bitcoin space. I think is much needed. You know, I think that there's really good publications now that are more broad, like Bitcoin Magazine and things like that. But it would be really cool if there was something that was a little bit more nerdy, more for industry insiders. There is a new COLDCARD website. So check that out to let us know if you find English written mistakes there. The COLDCARD Q is now available in Europe. Code Hodo. Great guys there. I think they are going to be organizing the Honey Badger in Riga. Go check out that. Updated docs for COLDCARD. Oh man, we had this coming for a long time now. We have a docs ninja working on this, and he's rewritten a lot of things, and still a lot of work to do, but it's better now. Call for people to get off their ass and get into amateur radio if they really care about decentralized comms. Yes, go get your license, learn about it. It's really cool. I'm going to be saying this all the time. And we have a new boost email for questions. It's questions@bitcoin.review. It also works as an email. So yeah, send questions. We're really enjoying the new questions coming in, and it really helps the show. Without further ado, all right, boys, it's going to be a fun one. I have a feeling you're going to end up spending a lopsided amount of time on vulnerabilities today. So why don't we start with the big pink elephant in the room? Dark Skippy, a new method for malicious signing device to leak secret keys. Just so people know, we're recording a panel about wallets that was not planned with this release, but happened to work out timing-wise on the following episode, where we're going to have wallet people to come and talk about wallets. So industry experts, including Mr. Dark and Skippy himself, Lloyd. So that's where we're going to get in the math. Today, I think we're going to talk about practicality and sort of like the meta commentary on it too. So guys, I mean, so I assume that the audience who listens to this show already knows everything, but maybe we explain what it is first.
Yeah, the TLDR is, there's been just like a known threat, I guess is like the best way to put it, for years, right? Like this is like an old concern. And like maybe we can talk about it in the abstract and then talk about when it should actually be part of your threat model. But the abstract concern is if you had a malicious signing device. So this could be you bought a signing device that you trusted and then somebody flashed different firmware onto it that's malicious, or if you bought a signing device and it had malicious firmware from the start. But if you have malicious firmware on a signing device or malicious software on a signing device, then the old idea is that every time a signing device needs to sign a Bitcoin transaction, it has to choose a nonce. And nonces you never want to repeat, because if you repeat a nonce, then you leak your private key. But the idea is that your malicious signer could pick a nonce that includes some bits from your secret key, and then over some number of signatures, it leaks your secret key using this maliciously chosen nonce as a side channel. So, you're signing valid Bitcoin transactions, you're spending your money, but over time, you're like slowly leaking your key through the blockchain.
And the beauty of this attack is that like you don't need to access the device to get the key. The key is on the chain, on the blockchain.
Right.
So you can remotely, it's a very good attack. It's a clever attack.
Yeah. And like a classic story for this is like, an evil maid thing where like you leave your hardware device unattended in a hotel room. The maid comes in to turn down your room and flashes it with new hardware. And then over the next 6 months or a year, as you're using your signing device to do all of your on-chain transacting, you're slowly leaking private keys, and an attacker, after some number of transactions, is able to put them together.
Why does the evil maid do dark Skippy instead of just putting a firmware that just shows me, like pretends like it's going to send an address and then actually just sends everything?
Because ideally you're checking the transaction before you broadcast. Listen, there's 50 ways to skin this cat.
Yeah.
Like the quote on the beginning is, exfil is just your imagination. Like there's like, it's endless, right? However.
But before we get into the weeds, the thing that's novel about dark Skippy and the thing that's like new is traditionally this attack has to take place over many, many transactions. Because you imagine that like every time my malicious signer signs a transaction, it leaks a few bits of my private key. And so it takes like many, many transactions for it to like leak all of my private key. With dark Skippy, the idea is that it leaks your entire seed phrase in one transaction. And so instead of it can be one transaction with two inputs.
Yeah.
And so instead of, it taking like I reflash your device and then it takes a year until I can steal your money, it's I reflash your device and then the first time you use it, I can steal your money. So that's the thing that's new and novel.
So then let's just talk about how we've mitigated this for the longest time as the next part, and why most hardware wallets don't have anti-klepto sort of like on them. This is important because then we can address everything else. So we have this RFC that's very old, 6979, okay, that defines that if you use deterministic nonces, right? So the signer picks nonces deterministically, right? You can essentially prove to yourself that it is not safe, for example, repeating a nonce, right?
Yeah.
Even for bugs. So you don't have that risk, right? So then the issue is, how do you know that the signer is doing this? Well, even if the signer is not deterministically built, you can just go sign the transaction twice, okay, and show in two different clients that the transaction has the same nonce. Now, here's the interesting part. If you're using deterministic builds for the hardware wallet, you can now prove that both are correct and the software is doing what it claims to do. So you're fairly safe, right? And that's why we've been so far okay with it. And the problem is, to use anti-klepto with the current solution, you need to expose the hardware to USB to do the exchanges to the exchanges, right? To get the nonce. Now, USB is worse than the alternative, in my opinion. And there is further issues here. You're taking a nonce that the hardware wallet cannot verify either. So there is danger there. And there is no core implementation of anti-klepto either. So like we're in a space where the solution for this very novel attack, okay, in my opinion, is worse than the solution we currently have. Now, why was this done with a Raspberry Pi on the demo? Well, because hardware wallets have some security on them and they check firmwares, right? They check the signature of the firmware. So in order for you to put in a evil firmware, you have to do all the breaking of the hardware wallet, which by that point might as well take the seed from them yourself. Now, the next question is, well, that could be a vendor malicious, right? Like firmware. Well, now you're dealing with calling massive like companies like, evil. Is that possible? Absolutely. Right. But you see, you keep on raising the threshold, right, of the risk. And you still have the capacity to prove yourself with checking the signatures. So, like there is a lot of nuance in this conversation, and that's where I guess we want to sort of get into.
Well, yeah, I was we're 12 minutes into the podcast now, so everyone's already asleep.
Perfect.
What I was going to do was a super zoom out of because talking to some people about this, and I had just like you have a lot of people message you about the Bitcoin price when it's really high or really low, like really volatile. A lot of people were messaging me to understand, like, what is this? How does it work? So in almost farmer terms, to try and really zoom out, like, what the heck is a signature even, right? Is that you have your hardware wallet, right? You're familiar probably with a seed phrase, your master secret, and you have a keychain, which is BIP32, where you have like multiple addresses. You can kind of like from your master secret get many, many addresses. Now, when it comes time to actually move money on the Bitcoin network, what you have to do is provide a proof that you are holding that address, the public key, like the private key to the public key. Every single public key is on chain, right? That's part of the proof of saying, like, this is my key. And when you go to sign, there's two parts to that. You have the signature, but the signature requires something called a nonce, the number only used once. And the nonce has to be a random number. If the nonce is known, you can do some algebra and reverse engineer and find out the private key. So when we're talking about all of this stuff, the dark Skippy attack is part of a family of attacks known as a nonce attack. If anyone remembers all of the kayfabe memeing around of NPC game and team script, the whole joke about like with Frost and things is that if you don't compute your nonce properly, you can reverse engineer the secret. Now, what dark Skippy does, which is really interesting, is it takes that nonce and it just encodes your actual master secret in the nonce itself. And what you can do is, if you are aware of this attack happening, every time you spend, you have to post signatures on chain. Those are not things you can keep private. You keep your private key secret, but the signatures themselves have to go on chain. So there is no like, this is the presentation of the attack. There's no way, if you are compromised in this way, there is no way you can get around it, because at some point when you go to spend the money, those signatures have to be on chain. And if those signatures have some sort of known pattern matching to them, they're not random. When we say deterministic, it's taking whatever your transaction is and making a random shuffle based on that, plus some data from your private key. If you're able to say, well, I actually know for a fact what that randomness source is, you could deconstruct the entire transaction. So I just wanted to super zoom out as to like the idea of this attack. We can talk about mitigations now and ways of going about it. I just wanted to start for anyone who's still awake and doesn't understand the deeper weeds of this, all of that context. Now we can go jump into it.
Yeah, and like there's a bunch of ways to mitigate it. I think something that's like tricky about deterministic nonces that I want to talk about, because otherwise it's like easy to kind of throw rocks at, is the way deterministic nonces work is they commit in an HMAC to the private key. So, what you would ideally do is like load a different seed into like your signing device and like another computer that's not correlated, sign the same transaction twice, and then compare the signatures. And if they're the same, then you know that the signing device is doing is signing it consistently. There's like very long tail attacks that somebody could do where they're like, oh, I'm going to put firmware on your device that, only leaks the key every 10th signing or something. And like you're playing whack-a-mole with it. But at that point, it's like, what you really, what I think a lot of this really comes down to is you need to have some amount of trust over the code that's signing your transactions. So if you can like go on GitHub and see that your signer isn't doing something silly, and then you can either build it yourself and flash that firmware onto the device yourself, or if your signer is using signed firmware and you can be like reasonably sure that your signer isn't running third-party firmware flashed by an evil maid, then this like isn't a problem, right? I think like where it's a problem is if every time you pick up your signer, you're not actually sure what code it's running.
Yes.
And I think that that's like a general problem in Bitcoin. Like if you don't know what code is handling your private keys, you're probably going to lose your money at some point.
I mean, this is a big reason why almost all hardware wallets use embedded hardware, right? Because embedded hardware, you control the whole stack. Every single line of code, everywhere in the stack, you control. Right?
Yep.
Same reason why we, don't use touchscreens, for example, because there is like, blobs of code in those too. And the thing is, like, if you're using a general purpose computer, you just have a lot of holes to stick evil code, right? And that's the biggest sort of critique towards general purpose computers. So the idea is you have to, in order to be practical with your Bitcoin, assume that your device, after you check signatures, it's safe, right? Again, the evil maid is not some made up crazy people attack. Like this is a very reasonable thing because the evil maid, it's much more broad than an actual evil maid at a hotel.
Yeah.
Right? It's just this concept that the hardware is hardened, right, against being tampered with when it's at rest, right? And is capable of checking its firmware when it boots. And that's what essentially all hardware wallets, well, most of them do, and some do better, some do worse, but whatever. There is some expectation that is true. Now, that is not true when we use general purpose hardware. And like, I don't even know how to explain this anymore in a way that people would stop arguing. Like,
as much as I love to complain about the Raspberry Pi rants, I think a good rule of thumb, you can imagine the amount of code, just thinking about software, the amount of code to boot a general purpose computer like your laptop or a Raspberry Pi or your phone, like an ARM device. The code to boot is probably an order of magnitude more than like your average like embedded hardware wallet is running entirely. Just the code to boot a device like that.
Yeah, no, if you want to do like something like do your signing with general purpose hardware, right? Like it's fine, like do it, but you have to check the signature of the software every time you're going to do stuff, right? And you have to make sure that you're buying Raspberry Pis from a general purpose store, not from a Bitcoiner, right? And ideally, you're disposing the hardware after you use it. So if you're disposing the hardware and you're getting it from general purpose places, you're likely safe.
Well, and like zooming out a little bit, like the general thing here, right, is like, how do you know that when your device, whether it's a laptop, a Raspberry Pi, or a specialized device, like how do you know when it's signing that it's not picking malicious nonces? There's a bunch of ways to know that. Anti-klepto is like one mechanism. Another mechanism is that you have a process or a mechanism to check that the signing code isn't picking malicious nonces and to check that that's what you're booting. And like either of those mechanisms solves the problem. I worked on a hardware signing device at one point, and we were looking at threat models, we were looking at klepto, and
it's a very big one that you can't disclose, but like that's, I just hope that people understand you're not just talking out of your ass. This is like a very big one.
Yeah, it's a pretty major piece of signing hardware. And, the way that we looked at it was like an anti-klepto mechanism isn't going to protect customers from us. Like if we wanted to be evil and have the signing device sign malicious transactions, we could do it through much more straightforward and easier mechanisms than leaking bits of your private key through maliciously chosen nonces. If we so really the thing that like an anti-klepto mechanism defends against is after we've shipped the device, after it's left the factory, at some point malicious firmware gets on the device that can leak private keys. And the way that we mitigated that was by having the bootloader on the signing device only boot signed firmware. And then the firmware for the device is public. So anybody can go and read the code and make sure that it's not doing anything tricky. And then if you try to flash malicious firmware onto the device, it literally won't boot it. And that covers this class of attack, but it also covers lots of other classes of attack.
Which is the majority of it.
Right.
Yeah, which like there's lots and lots of ways that a signer can lose your money or strand your money forever.
I mean, listen, you can get a general purpose computer, like stick on the ROM something that searches for private keys in memory and just replaces them, just replaces like addresses or something else, right? Like there's all kinds of stuff. It could also just generate bad private keys.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just generates like a rainbow table of private keys that you have and the device have, and that's it. Like they don't need to retrieve it, right? That's why COLDCARD has the red and the green light, right? So like if the device fails to check its signature on top of you ideally checking your signature, you're great. And sorry, the biggest problem in general here is that almost no one checks signature.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest market coming into Bitcoin, you never check signature. They don't even understand what that is, and they'll never understand what that is, right? So like to shit on wallets trying to do that job for the user that doesn't want to do it, but also provides the advanced user a way of doing it themselves, it's nearly malicious.
Well, and like, the anti-klepto protocol is like, it's a good idea. And like the general idea is that
it's fantastic.
Is that you have like the off signer coordinator. So whether it's like your phone or your laptop, like the thing that's running the wallet software, you have that provide some entropy that the signer has to commit to when it generates the nonce. And so the signer can't just pick any old nonce that it wants.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we need in order to get more adoption there is that there needs to be a standard that makes that interoperable with like PSBTs. And I think we have to think about like how many rounds that protocol is. Because like, if there's some combinations of software and hardware where like that's okay. And there's some combinations of hardware and software where like that's not going to work. And you have to cover the same risk with other techniques like having signed firmware.
So we've Ava, after like, I don't know if you saw my tweets about this, because that's my requirement to add a protocol like that, is to have something that works over PSBT and ideally is implemented in core. He tweeted about like if people are interested on this, and Doc Hex responded to him. So we kind of started internally now, sort of like putting together some ideas and thinking, like of a spec.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw Ava got nerd sniped into doing like Musig in PSBTs. So if the next thing is nonce commitments, that would be awesome.
This is what I think is structurally interesting, is that the PSBT has all these proprietary fields that no one's really done anything with yet. And it's just wide open from a spec perspective to enable more functionality, whether it's Musig or doing some sort of updated spec for kind of mitigating these nonce attacks. I think it's all structurally moving in the right direction as an open standard that anyone can kind of cross-apply.
Yeah, we've been saying this for years now, since the anti-klepto was announced years ago, that like, okay, this is great, but it requires USB and it's not PSBT compatible. So like, we were just hoping, listen, we are not cryptographers, we are not academics. We are like, grug brain shipping, like, like wrench attack protection on people. Like we tend to stay away from people who are much smarter about the stuff to build specs on the stuff, but nobody is. So, we're going to approach it and hopefully build something that like we find like reasonable. But, like I'm terrified of messing with nonsense, right? This, what I love about deterministic nonsense is that like, it's a very simple approach to this problem, right? Like if you mess with the nonsense in the wrong way, right? And any new solution is going to have new problems, like, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I get like the whole, like, because it's almost adjacent to just dealing with the raw seed phrase, right?
Yes.
Because like the nature of just how public-private key cryptography works, like you're right on the edge of very sensitive cryptography operations because it's every single signature. I think fundamentally, until Andrew Polstra manages to find a way to do a bunch of paper computers that can actually do signing for transactions, we're always going to have to rely on some circuitry and some software and like CPU cycles of being able to run these operations.
Yeah.
And everything we're doing is to try and mitigate so we can do this multiplication and like these large number stuff that can mitigate it. I've been thinking about, and I actually just double checked right now. So Rust Bitcoin and Rust 256K, like the algo library, uses RFC 6979 in its spec. And I've been thinking about doing some version of a roles.py that would allow you to basically, if you so chose and wanted to, you could just load up a signature of a PSBT. And then the downside here to clearly disclose, just like roles.py, for those who are familiar, is you could roll dice to generate your entropy, and you could verify on a separate device that you're not actually being pwned, that the derived entropy is what's being told to you, because you run them on two different software stacks and two different hardware stacks.
Dude, but then like people are going to go and roll, 100 dice rolls of zeros.
Yeah.
Right. There's always ways for users. And no, I believe it. No, I entirely believe it.
Yeah.
For those, if you're dealing with this low level stuff, you have to have some sense of knowledge of what you're doing, right? You can't just roll the number 1 6 times or put in random stuff. I know people have done that before, but my point being, it'd be a good little open source little reference library to be like, hey, do you want to check a signature? Disclaimer, you have to load your private key onto this other thing, like do it as a one-off or a test or a proof of concept.
Yeah.
But you can prove to yourself that you're not being actively cheated, and then you can go full office space on the computer after the fact if you wanted to.
I was just thinking, so, we've been using deterministic nonces in Bitcoin for years now because repeating a nonce leaks your private key. But with all of the new Schnorr-based MPC systems like Musig and Frost, you can't actually use deterministic nonces because there's ways that other parties can like force you to pick a bad nonce.
Yeah.
So, part of the work that like Ava Chow is doing and that other people have been doing is like formalizing how different signers pass around nonce commitments to each other before a signing is going to happen. And like that stuff's been working its way into PSBT. I wonder if that work can be leaned on for something like this. Like if we're already building the plumbing for Sparrow Wallet to get a nonce commitment from the COLDCARD or, whatever, then that miite be a step in the right direction too.
I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. And just to kind of disclose, for anti-klepto specs, we added Schnorr 4 years ago with Taproot, and there isn't a final Schnorr anti-klepto spec merged into core in the elliptic curve library yet. So that's a interesting, like we're at a place at the moment where even for the frontier of how Bitcoin works, that stuff hasn't even been merged. And I went and looked at the pull requests that hadn't been touched in a year. And I think now it's going to get some added attention and love, which would be a good step in the right direction. And to your point, Rijndael, I mean, Lloyd, Robin, Linus, and then Nick from FrostSnap were the guys who came out with the Dark Skippy exploit. And I think this is stuff they're already thinking about, because trying to do any sort of frost mitigation, you have to be managing and controlling your nonces anyway.
Yeah.
So I was teasing Nick that he was just pumping his frost bags. But it'd be good if from all of this we get hardened standards that can just be openly applied to anyone who wants to integrate them.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge with Frost, is that, you need multiple rounds or figure out. Nobody has figured out like a good solution yet. Schnorr and nonces is a major issue, especially with UX, right? We don't want synchrony in air gap devices, right? That's why we shun USB. And for anybody who thinks USB can be made safe has never read the USB spec. It's like 1 million pages. And imagine you have your super high speed signals right beside your serial port, and everything's together and everything's poorly made. You cannot secure USB. Just start with that premise. And that's why, anything that matters is air gap. So, if you want to drop a little bit of that paranoia for your multi-sig, sure. Use your hardware wallet on USB if you're using multi-sig, because you're de-risking some of the devices. But, there are some UX problems, right? And we need to resolve them before we're willing to move to the next sort of like benchmark of security regarding nonces. I don't think we can ignore that. Here's Peter's idea that he was talking with Ava on Twitter. I wonder if there is some way to leverage the fact that the signer and the desktop have BIP32 keys pre-shared, like PSBT builder picks a random derivation and checks after signing the associated subkey is a factor in the signature key. You know, like what I love about ideas like that is that they're simple and they use primitives we already have, right? And they require like less rounds or no rounds, really.
Yeah.
So I think that's the path, right? I think the anti-klepto solution was interesting, but it was made by people who use USB, right? So they completely disregarded the UX of more secure, in my opinion, devices that do it air-gapped. So, like, you know, we have to take that in consideration on the UX.
It's interesting, too, because it's using the same fundamental assumptions we already have. If you're using a random BIP32 branch, you're assuming that, like, the public keys are all random anyway, right? So you already have, like, some added randomness that's being added in there. And if you can do some sort of inclusion proof, that seems like a clean way. And correct me if I'm wrong, this would be part of, at the time you're constructing the transaction with your coordinator, you could drop this in there.
Yes.
And then because it's part of the coordinator, it still maintains one round of communication because it's part of the initial payload that gets sent over. It would just require the coordinator, when it receives the signature, to run a check. And assuming everything is above board and as expected within the spec, you'd be able to have a full loop and be able to do it all with the same UX to the end user.
I mean, it makes sense if you just think like from first principles, right? Like the PSBT is bringing the serialized transaction for you to sign, right? And it could also be bringing the nonce for you as well, like use this nonce, right?
Mm-hmm.
My fear, and I think this resolves that, my fear has always been if you take a nonce that the hardware wallet doesn't have a way to check if it's good, then you're at the mercy of the client now, right? And the client is the thing that we cannot defend, because the client is the computer, right? So the wallet on the computer, there's a reason why the private key is not there. It's because you can't defend. So you don't want to trust the client either. It's a tricky thing.
Right.
Right?
And for completeness, I'm checking now. Bitcoin Core, the SecP256K1 library uses RFC 6979 as part of this operation.
Yeah, it is the standard sort of to resolve this problem.
It is the way to do it. It is like, it's in the core reference implementation for the elliptic curve, like the most reviewed library in the world of the SecP256K1 library. Like that's what everyone's using.
Just as a personal check to see if I've been following along, if you got a bad nonce from the computer, it could be a bad nonce, but that nonce wouldn't have the dark Skippy private key information in it, right? Because the computer never saw that.
That's right.
So it could be bad in a different way.
If you give bad nonces, you can leak the private key.
But hold on, though, because if the hardware wallet is aware of it, you would have in part of the PSTP payload, the coordinator would say, hey, use this nonce.
Yes.
And then the signing device would be able to check, oh, is this on my derivation branch?
Exactly.
It'd be able to cross-verify that the provided entropy being given is something that's in its known library of secrets by pulling out something that the hardware wallet already knows, which is the public key as part of the BIP32 path. Right, so everyone, it's the Pulp Fiction meme. Everyone's pointing guns to each other's heads and triple checking to make sure they're not being lied to.
Yes, that's the Bitcoin way.
Exactly.
I mean, like, you know, and then we can really, like, you know, you can tendentially go in a bunch of places here, right? Because, like, to exfil stuff, I mean, you know, you can create, like, Evo, for example, an Evo QR code, right? That, like, you know, I don't know, like gives you a web address instead, right? Like load something. Like there's all kinds of shit that people can do. It's an endless thing. Like it's not like this is just one more thing we've learned, right? So I really think the outrage over something that's been working on the market with millions of users safely thus far is like the wrong way to approach this. It just makes noobs scared of hardware wallets. That's one lesson that people should take. Another one is people should check signatures, which they don't, but they won't.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, you know, like when cryptographers and researchers release stuff, it doesn't mean like it's super practical. It's important for industry to take it seriously and create solutions around it. But, you know, don't freak out. What other sort of like very basic things?
I have an open standard. Everyone wins with open standards because let's say your team air gapped computer, you don't even like hardware wallets. This spec of using a PSBT to kind of do this negotiation would make even that stronger. Because right now, there's nothing fundamentally differentiating from if your signer is lying to you, regardless of where you're doing the signature operation, whether it's a dedicated hardware wallet or a computer, whatever it is, or your phone, whatever it is, you're able to mitigate it if you're doing this nonce negotiation as part of the proprietary PSBT field. Everyone is stronger because it's an open standard that everyone can reference, as opposed to it being a proprietary way of executing anti-klepto or a way that requires like USB or kind of forcing form factors. If you keep it very simple at that simple data exchange level that everyone can openly audit, everyone's a winner in the end.
Yep.
We like open standards.
We like open standards and that are implemented everywhere, ideally on core when it comes to cryptography. You know, like you can't cover everything. Like that's the reality. Can't cover everything. We try our best to cover as much as we can as an industry. And God knows people are much better with hardware wallets than they were before with computers. I mean, like there is no difference. Like, sorry, there's no, like it's insane, right? Like people used to get owned all the time. Remember when like core had a password problem on RPC? You know, like key is not on the computer, right? Keys on hardware wallets, much better improvement. Are hardware wallets perfect? No.
Yep.
Can we improve them? Yes. And it's early, so we're gonna keep on improving. Like it's not that hard of a framework to have, right?
Yeah, RFC 6979 I just looked it up, is from 2013.
Yeah.
So some sort of updated like tweak of RFC 6979 with this like public key exchange could be a nice update that just strengthens everything everywhere.
That's 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like maybe the general takeaway, and then maybe we should move on to item number 2 on the list is is like the name of the game is defense in depth. Like the thing that you want to avoid is putting your money in a situation where like the failure of one component or one process loses all of your money. So, you know, like if you think like the thing that would be the nightmare scenario for something like Dark Skippy is if you had some signing device and like all it took was a bad guy being able to like load malicious code on it, and then you can, without any way of validating it, be leaking your keys, then like you're in a bad spot. If you have, you know, a signer that like bad guys can load malicious firmware onto, then you need to have mechanisms to verify that like bad things aren't happening every time you use the device. There's a number of ways that you can skin that cat, but you know, you really want to have like belt and suspenders. And so either make sure that like malicious firmware can't get on your device, or make sure that if malicious firmware can get on your device, that it's not mishandling your keys and generating malicious signatures.
Yep. All right. Next topic. We're also going to have a 2-3 hour panel on the hardware wallet security stuff anyways on the next episode. So
if 40 minutes wasn't enough, you'll get 3 hours next week.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is literally endless, right? Like it's just security is an endless problem. All right. Free relay attack taking advantage of the lack of full RBF in core. Peter Todd disclosed this vulnerability. Am I the only one who like legitimately don't care about vulnerabilities that just crash core?
Well, what's interesting now is that this is no longer a thing because in version 28, full RBF is going to be live.
Yeah, it got turned on.
This was Peter Todd just like basically shoving like as much as possible to show to, like, you need to do full RBF. I will crash everything if you don't do full RBF.
Right.
Yeah, so it's somewhat of a moot point on newer clients going into the new software release.
Yeah, I don't know. I have many nodes that are very old software and they have never been crashed or messed with by anyone. So like I'm never too concerned about these things.
It's good to know.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
It's good to clean up because we don't want the peer-to-peer layer to die. In the same breath, we haven't seen anyone ever tweak or exploit these yet to actually like hurt the network numbers.
Indeed. Mac malware posing as popular apps like Ledger Live, Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to happen. The more private keys and money there is in the computer, the more things we're going to see that try to take them away from the computer. And the computer is connected to the internet or the USB on something. And I mean, the economics are beautiful, right, for attackers, because the private keys are remotely used. You don't have to do a wire transfer.
With Ledger Live being the biggest headache, because I'm assuming that you're more likely to download a malicious Ledger Live than a malicious Chrome, because how often are you downloading a new mobile browser, right? Especially, I mean, maybe I'm thinking as a threat adversarial modelly aware person that I wouldn't be clicking Google ads to try and get new software. But point being, shout out to the Liana guys. They actually found a way to basically bypass Ledger Live to do firmware updates and app installations by just directly talking to the Ledger. It's some reference code. I haven't actually played around with it yet, but that is a great way to kind of sidestep some of this stuff. But it's a scary world out there. You gotta double check before you click things.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. For your friends and family, block ads for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep mom and dad safe by installing an ad blocker.
Yes. Another thing I highly recommend is get into their router and quadruple zero their Facebook, facebook.com.
Yeah.
Just grab a list of a bunch of websites that they're going to get crap from. And then, Facebook doesn't work on my computer. Oh, I'm so sorry. There must be something wrong with it. And then they use it on their phone. And then their phone, they're a bit safer.
Yeah.
So as someone who had a former life in advertising before I was more into Bitcoin, what's interesting about these exploits is it was within the Google embedded native search. So it wasn't like a formal ad server. It was the sponsored links you get at the top of it. So and Google is very good at the whack-a-mole game of block lists and then changing one digit in the thing to get around the filter. It's a huge whack-a-mole with ad block filters. And since it was part of the search embedded ads, it'd be harder to just natively fully scrub. As a general rule, whenever I search something, I just scroll past.
Don't use Google.
Well, yeah, but anything that's a sponsored, you just scroll past that and look down.
I always make, for family, on the sneaky stuff, I always make their default browser search also be DuckDuckGo, for example. Just basic things like that. And then when they go but it doesn't work on my computer. Oh, use your phone, and then on the phone, they're safer.
And turn off motion smoothing on the TV as well. Right?
That's critically important. That may be more important actually than web security is turning off the soap opera effect for sure.
This is total tangent, but I'm happy that we're moving into this world of being post Google search, all the AI stuff disrupting. And then I've been using Kagi for a while. I just love it. Some people said it couldn't be done, but this monopoly will fall.
Yeah. It's just the market will take it, right? Because, the big ones get complacent. It's always like that. I mean, remember, some people may not be old enough to remember when Alta Vista was the bee's sneeze, right? And how could anybody possibly disrupt Alta Vista?
Think about how much nerdy shit you guys just talked about for 40 minutes about highly theoretical evil maid attacks, and Google doesn't have a blacklist for popular software downloads for advertising.
It's quadruple, it's having a drawbridge and alligators, but then the back door's unlocked. The simple ways right there.
Right. Remember, right? Google removed the "Don't Be Evil" motto, right? They make probably their biggest money on evil ads, right? And they accidentally catch them whenever it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Google is a peacetime company and Perplexity is a wartime company. And so, that's why Perplexity is eating Google's lunch.
Yeah. And probably using Google API on the back end to feed the AI what to answer, right? Which is the funniest part of all.
And Paul, to your point, these LLMs breaking things down, being able to have open models and you can send it out into the world to curate content, and then you can just firewall it on your own local rules to be able to kind of deconstruct all the bullshit so you just get the information. You're removing the gap between user and information, and that's just better for everyone.
Love it.
So to continue on this tangent with completely unrelated things to Bitcoin. So the other day, I was trying to find the best low-loss coaxial cable with the best pound per feet, right? It sounds like something reasonable, right? But then every manufacturer have these things descripted in different ways with different measurement standards. And, and I wanted to plot that. So, there I go on Unleash, and I start sort of like getting Unleash to search the internet for me and then build a chart, right? Like build me a chart of this and then like use this as the sorting and then I plotted that. And it's like, holy shit, this is the chart that would have taken me like weeks and I would have given up, right?
Yeah.
Things are there, man. Like it really are like moving along. I'm very impressed of where we're going. And no, LLMs will never have AGI. It's like trying to make an electric motor be like electric or something. Like somebody had a great quote about that the other day and I forgot.
Yeah. I saw, I guess related to that, just Alex Leishman from River had a really cool post about this, like the scam of AGI. And long story short, there's very simple problems that any LLM still can't solve because it's just repeating what it's seen. And there's like $1 million price pool to see if these AIs can do anything close to what you would expect a normal like 10-year-old be able to do. And it's not there yet. So it's very suspect. It's an amazing productivity boost, but it's not AGI. It's not what everyone's selling it and raising money on valuations for.
No, it's just a bullshit machine with great statistical accuracy. All right, $5 wrench attacks. Foreigner abducted and killed in Kyiv for Bitcoin censored.net. So yeah, man, I mean, don't let people know you have Bitcoin. Have robbers' money. Like work on your OPSEC, guys, because the world out there is way scarier than XFew attacks.
And don't keep it all on you at once. Don't keep all your keys on you so you can sign it away.
Right.
Yeah, and as a public Bitcoiner, like I work out of the Bitcoin Commons a lot.
It's like I'm here. Come take me.
Further doxing myself, but like if you enter like a public Bitcoin space and you're hanging out with public Bitcoiners, that's not like you don't like open the conversation. You're gonna look like a spook if you open the conversation like, so
how much Bitcoin do you have?
When did you buy your first Bitcoins? It's just to have a little common sense out there. There's a lot of spook-like behavior going on.
It sounds like there's some things that have been happening at the Commons recently.
Thai police arrest 5 Russians accused of kidnapping a compatriot for 900,000 cryptocurrency ransom in Pattaya. So yeah, another one. Locke keeps on updating his list. Be ready to deal with wrench attacks. They are going to become very, very common. I keep on, by the way, I've asked Phoenix, I've asked Primo, I've asked all the Lightning wallets because people are keeping bigger balances to have a duress pin that shows a different wallet with some money in it. Like it's like super necessary because the phone is with people where they are. And if you're on the street, it's becoming very common for bad guys to go unlock your phone, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if you don't, you're going to get stabbed. So having a robber's money pin is like one of the best sort of like mitigations for this, and then you pick your level of comfort on how you want to handle the situations. Yes, I mean, Anchor Watch has the best giveaway, which is a little wrench with Anchor Watch in it.
With a bottle opener.
Yes. I have one of those. All right. Accessing deleted and private repository data on GitHub. Truffle security. Yeah.
I'm groaning just because like the number of people who accidentally check an API secret into GitHub.
Yes.
And then like delete it and push a new commit and are like, cool, done is way too high.
Yeah. No, I mean, don't use GitHub for secrets, period. I mean, maybe for like low security projects, by all means, right? I mean, like if you're going to have like a meme website, so whatever, but like just don't,
So I'm currently doing like a lot of interviews right now looking for additional engineering talent. And I'm going to tell you 25 to 30% of the applicants just like check commits, like in their commits, just have secrets in there. I'm like, well, that's an instant. Like, come on, guys. Like what's going on here?
Phenomenal.
It's pretty brutal.
By the way, if you're a full stack engineer who's not retarded, Anchor Watch is hiring.
There you go. And I'm pretty sure like anybody who's listening 50 minutes in on this show is likely a non-retarded engineer. So
Very likely that, or they have insomnia problems. They're trying to get over it.
a podcast that nobody listens to, providing some value.
There you go.
Amazing.
All right. Telegram zero-day exploit allows malicious APKs to be sent as videos. Wow.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, well, the solution is don't use Android.
Or Telegram.
Telegram.
That's wild.
You know, Telegram is one of those companies that has the vibe of like most of the money that they make is probably allowing scammers to scam on it. So, yeah.
I just maintain that Telegram is a front. It's definitely an op.
Oh, absolutely.
It's 100% an op.
Everything is an op.
Yeah, but like there's like ops and then there's
Yes.
ops. And like Telegram is an op.
Totally.
Well, I'm looking at the flow of this. You would click the video, and then a little thing would pop out saying Telegram's unable to play this. Open with an external player. You'd click open, and then it'd be like, "Oh, install this unknown app called Telegram."
Excellent.
Like wild. It's like, dude, the APK would spoof and make it look like it's Telegram. That you're
Yeah.
in Telegram. Yo, dog, I heard you like Telegram, so we let you download Telegram while you Telegram, so you can install
So
Telegram.
you can chat while you chat.
Yeah, right.
Phenomenal.
I'd love to see the numbers, you know, like since Apple became much bigger on the desktop space with the laptops again, and they have like, essentially they don't let people that don't know what they're doing run apps from the internet. Like, I imagine like the amount of attacks like dropped, you know, like million X. Just don't let people open things unless they're signed, even though we hate Apple for having the walled garden. But then you can bypass it, right? With a little bit of annoyance and a password. It's like probably like saves a lot of people. All right. Data breach at bank linked to Coinbase exposes customer data. Yeah, KYC is the crime. When are we going to see like some like damages lawsuits against companies that lost customer data? So then these companies go fight back government on this KYC retention shit. That's really what I want to see.
Yeah, why not? I've been trying to come up with my own legal theory on this. Of how could we just sue the government? Like
Yes.
the ideal case is like a grandma
Yes.
who gets wrecked because her Coinbase is leaked. Because the typical privacy lawsuits against the government is like a guy does a crime and then the FBI catches him by like invading his privacy. But he obviously did the crime.
Yeah.
What we need is like a complete innocent
Crimeless.
who was a glutton for sacrifice on the altar of KYC.
And she's like crying on the 8 p.m. news, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, you can't fight that.
She saved up 1 Bitcoin for each of her grandkids.
That's right. And they all had cancer.
All of their cancer treatment money's gone. Exactly.
And it's like, you know, like the absolute thing there. Yeah.
It has to be at the government level because all of these companies are just required by law.
I know, but see, like if companies start losing a lot of money, like big they will go after government to lobbyists and change things too.
Oh, for
like
sure.
that's a normally a very good attack vector against government. There, it's you know, they're the pockets of the politicians. All right, Fractal ID, a Web3 identity solution provider, suffers a data breach affecting 0.5% of its user base. More KYC shit. Indian crypto exchange WazirX confirms a security breach resulting in 230 million loss. Brutal. Interface actual transaction. The payload is suspected to have altered the grant the attacker wallet control. Stolen assets represent 45%, blah, blah, blah. I'm curious here how this... did they release action?
I'm looking right now. It looks like they were using this company called Liminal's Digital Asset Custody Wallet. And 5 of the signatures were part of the WazirX team, and 1 was Liminal, like a backup key. And I'm reading through the post right now. It looks like something involving with the UX and like spoofing like a whitelisted address withdrawal, like through the login.
Yeah, see, this is the thing, right? Like exchanges try to be safe and effective, and all the interactions are through the browser. So like, you know, any of these extensions that people use are going to probably try to replace addresses, try to replace everything, right? I mean, like it's really just an authenticated data on the screen. It's pretty brutal. Man, I really wish, most exchanges would do address verification via push notification, say, to your app, right? Like something like that, because they all do this retarded sort of like video verification, all this stuff that's spoofable, like we really need the like essentially using a different channel for you to verify things.
Yeah.
It's much more efficient. I mean, you can even give up passwords and just have 2FA to log into things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been putting a lot of thought into this just in general because like having customer interactions and improving withdrawals and stuff, like it's definitely something that there's a lot of opportunity for improving it. I'm looking at the hack here. It was 61,000 ETH. Like that's basically where the money was. It was all ETH as well.
So that's what, $1 in today's money?
Yeah, so it's 100 in today's money. Now that the price has tanked so much, it's only now $150 million of ETH.
Oh, well, I mean,
should have bought Bitcoin instead.
Yeah, right. The hacker should have rotated and bought Bitcoin. Yeah, that's right.
Did he use Tornado Cash after?
No, because I'm looking at the dashboard right now. It's just been sitting there. They've been doing some small swaps. Like there's this website Argon that like monitors these hacks.
Right.
They went to Cow Protocol, got $15,000. What a clown! Like I'm looking at this whole thing.
Right.
It's been sitting there, but basically they did the sweep and it's been sitting there.
Wow. All right. The exchange DYDX website hacked in DNS hijack attack. Oh, by the way, I'm still amazed that it has not come to major mainstream media. The Google Workspace DNS hijack was total fucking shit show.
Well, that was wild.
Dude, Google login everywhere.
So for everyone at home that's still awake, when you click on a website and it says sign in with Google, and you just like use your Gmail or your Google account, whatever, to sign in something, was totally compromised.
absolute nightmare.
Yes, and without the website being able to do anything about it except turn it off. Like, how is this not being covered? It's insane. Anyways,
Big SSO is colluding with the mainstream media to sweep it all under the rug.
Big nonce and big SSO.
That's right, Big Nos. Yeah, wait until you mix the two. All right. Bitcoin software releases and project updates. We made it, guys, just before the hour mark.
1 hour.
All right. SecB 256K1 library version 0.5.1. Add usage example for Alligator Swift key exchange changed.
Awesome.
Yeah. The default size of the pre-compute table for signing was changed from 22 kilobytes to 86. The size can be changed with configure option.
That's good.
Auto is no longer an accepted value for the with EC Mult window and EC Mult Gen KB. To achieve the same configuration as previously provided by the auto value, omit setting in the configure option explicitly. Man, I can't read to save my life today. Fix compilation when extra keys module is disabled. This is the most important project in Bitcoin. And we had a great panel about it once. So go find that show. Totally worth listening to. BDK version 1.0.0-beta 1. Allow user provided RNG, make ran, and optional dependency. Use PSBT sig hash ECDSA for compute sig hashes. Use weight type instead of use size. Remove usage of block data from Bitcoin paths. Calculate the scripter ID as the SHA-256 hash of
Script public
SPK.
key.
Yep.
SPK, script public key.
Change TX last seen to option U64. Add support for custom sorting and deprecated BIP69. This is such a fucking bag of hurt. We're going through the process of thinking about offering non-69 compliant multi-sig.
Really? Not using sorted?
Yeah, because for people that don't know, like it's really fucking dangerous because people make scripts and the money's gone.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So BIP69 is just lexicographical sorting of public keys. So when you're doing a multi-sig, it's called a sorted multi-sig, where if you have 3 signers, you basically, when you create an address, you just sort them in order. And to Rodolfo's point, the problem is if you don't know the order that the keys are in, you can't reconstruct the script hash, which means you can't reconstruct the address, which means even though you have all the keys, money gone until you sort that shit out. Like it's a big problem to think through.
Yeah, no, it could be gone forever. What's interesting is like, so CoinKite.com back when we used to have the multi-sig wallet, and BitGo predate BIP69, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who uses BitGo as a cosigner, right? So a lot of big bag holders do, they need and sort it because of BitGo. So, and we have a lot of customers that need that. So we've been thinking about how to approach it in a way that's, this is like very deep into how everything works. So it's a very scary change. So another one that needs to be thought through, and it's going to take a while to work on, but it's going to need to be because of, all the other mini script shit and everything else.
Well, Miniscript can just use sorted BIP69.
Yes.
Don't put this on Miniscript. It's a larger conversation around descriptors and kind of like custom script construction, because for the longest time we've either had single sig or we have had multi-sig. And when you have those, like those are constrained enough where you can use something like a BIP69 to really compress like the design space of what's happening. When you start going to larger scripts like a mini script, you need to start thinking about that construction more thoughtfully. The good news is with BDK 1.0 beta is we finally have stable wallets. All the APIs are now stable. It all can run. 8 months late, I'll tease Steve about for BDK 1.0, but at least we're there now and we're in a good spot for minimal changes that aren't going to have any issues breaking backwards compatibility.
For a little context, I was at the Rust Bitcoin summit or whatever for the first couple days. And there was a lot of discussion. There's kind of this gentleman, like Mutiny had dependencies on BDK, LDK, Fedmint, and all of those have dependencies on Rust Bitcoin. And just due to how Rust works, a lot of times we'd end up with like several copies of Rust Bitcoin, which means like several copies of libsecp under that. So it's been a challenge trying to get the whole Rust Bitcoin ecosystem in sync. So this summit,
what's Rust?
It's this great programming language. You wouldn't understand.
Yeah, but Paul, to your point, everyone kind of got in a room and aligned on like the version pinning to understand how that all works. And I call it the Nashville Agreement. And then everyone kind of started turning white because this is the big cabal.
That's great. I love that. I'll support you on that. I heard it as well. I can witness.
Make a t-shirt. This kind of troll should exist.
The Nashville Agreement. All the devs got in a room and agreed to pin to version 0.32 Rust Bitcoin.
Yep.
I mean, it really is remarkable what BDK achieved. It started as like a very simple project and like, it's really, really becoming underpinning of a lot of projects. I mean, like building and maintaining wallets, like especially the serialization code for transactions, like it is like hell and very difficult.
Well,
very dangerous.
It's all undifferentiated heavy lifting. It's like everybody has to write the exact same code. So it should really live in one place.
Yes.
Everybody can, look at the same code for bugs, fix it in one place, and then, move on with whatever makes their wallet special.
During the summit, I just like took a few hours in the afternoon and just built like a BDK 2E wallet. Because it's just that easy.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
It really is.
Yeah, I was just going to say BDK is a superpower. It's standing on the shoulder of giants.
Good for you, Steve.
It's Steve. And then what was great about that is we were able to talk to the maintainers of Rust Bitcoin in the room. And that started as a passion project back in 2014. And it's just all of that meticulous implementation of all of that stuff is like the strong workhorse. And then Steve and originally Alikos come in on top of it. And they just make a Swiss Army knife so you can do everything without having to write all this low-level cryptography. It's a superpower.
What's the current state of Rust language fighting with Bitcoin? Because, I suggest that they just rename Rust to Crust and run that fork so that they don't have to deal with the bullshit of those commies.
It seems like it's kind of a non-issue. Like it's the maintainer of was it crate.rs, like was mislabeling the crate, and there was some drama there. But I think, it's like I've been writing some amount of code that touches Rust Bitcoin at least once a week for the last 3 years, and it doesn't actually affect anything.
Okay, good. All right, Nunchuk desktop version 1.9.36, support for automated wallet rollover, key replacement for unassisted wallets, Android automated wallet rollover, portal device integration, automated rollover feature, a bunch of things here. So they added, this is really cool. So they assist you with rolling over your multisig to a new multisig, essentially when you have to deprecate a key.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks to do that, because multisig was never designed for you to have key rotation, so you have to essentially move all the money to a new one. So it's nice to see people helping people do the thing. Nunchuk is a fantastic project. Hugo does a lot of work on this. It's very grounded. They reuse a lot of core code for a lot of what they do. Everything is native. They have a fuck million features on the app. So yeah, support that project. Buy one of their plans and use it. I think they're very good.
Yeah, I think Hugo and Nunchuk are exemplary of the mobile app ecosystem and this like more advanced social coordination signing stuff. Like they do a lot of really great work.
Yep. Libwally-core version 1.3.0 adds support for fetching CSV block count for green CSV script.
Cool.
Adds support for finalizing green CSV inputs, PSBT. Do not serialize witness data for input non-witness UTXOs in order to match the current behavior of Bitcoin Core.
I'm guessing that those first two features are probably really so Green has this feature where you can have your coins in like a 2 of 2 wallet, where the Green wallet like blind pin server cosigns your transactions, and you can have like a spend policy like I have to answer an MFA challenge in order for them to cosign my transaction. And then the idea is that there's an alternate spend path where after a relative time lock of like 6 months, then you can just unilaterally spend your coins, so that if their pin server goes away or starts trying to censor you or whatever, then you can still get your money. So I'm guessing that those first two items are probably going to be really useful if you want to write your own software that can like recover these funds that might be in like the Green Wallet 2 of 2 script. So that's really cool.
Nice. All right, Bitcoin Keeper version 1.2.12, cloud backup auto trigger with any vault changes, custom fees now enabled for auto transfer, assisted keys can now be hidden, and the other updates as well. File transfer for all signers, useful for devices not supporting NFC or QR scanning. You can now connect your Trezor to your multi-key setups. Nice to see this other project also making some strides. Boltz Exchange web app version 1.4.1, show cooperative refund error on broadcast fail, add reckless mode, add warning to download file names. All right, Blockstream Green version 4.0.31, rescan Lightning swaps, set Electrum TLS for custom Electrum servers, improve Lightning account deletion. Android version 4.0.31, allow disabling TLS personal Electrum server, and still no PSBT. Bitkey version 2024.63.0, feature callouts. Badges now appear to note new features, improve price comparison. See more details for price comparison.
The price comparison thing is actually kind of a cool feature. So the idea is that in the app, if you want to buy Bitcoin from like Cash App or Coinbase or some other on-ramp, they show you apples to apples. Like if you're going to spend $100, how many sats you'll get from each of the different exchanges. And it includes like fees and spread. So you can actually make like an apples to apples comparison of like, should I buy it from Coinbase or Cash App or Moon or whoever, right? So it's actually kind of a cool feature. It's like nice, because different exchanges will have different pricing structures, and it's kind of hard to know how those actually add up.
Very nice. I mean, like, the normies coming into Bitcoin, this is a very reasonable, like, good trade-off solution, right? It's
Yep.
go into this thing, it does everything for you. You lose a bit on privacy, you lose a bit on, vendor lock-in and a bunch of stuff, but, there's no seeds. But, you're kind of like safe, until you're ready to move on to, real sort of sovereign setup, right? Padawan Wallet version 0.13.0, Swift Speeder, no testnet, only Bitcoin wallet. Now use Signet instead of testnet 3, translation to Portuguese, improved screen tutorials. This is a wallet, like a phone wallet to essentially like demo and test BDK.
And to like learn about Bitcoin.
Yeah, so Matt and Thunder Biscuit and the BDK team like have a reference app of like this is what an iOS app and Android app look like. It's this. I think it's iOS only, but what's really cool, this is part of the BDK functionality, is it can do the foreign language bindings. So it uses all the Rust code under the hood, and then it actually executes all the operations in native Swift within the app. And it's a good just like reference app. I will say I did not put this on the list. Moving from Signet to Testnet 3, Testnet 4 has now been merged. Woo. So Rijndael and I have our huge Testnet 4 bags.
Yeah.
Accelerate the shit coining on Bitcoin.
We're backing up the truck. Rijndael's toaster, I think, has found up hundreds of Bitcoin. We're going to disrupt Mutiny Net and take over the shitcoin market.
That's right. It's hot right now.
Let me have this one thing.
That's right. The most ephemeral shitcoin on the planet.
Yes, Testnet 4.
One day it's there, the other day it's no longer there. All right. ESP-miner, version 2.1.9, add overheat mode, and a bunch of other things. It's fun to see these little projects.
Did you see a Bitaxe won a solo block?
Yeah, I did. I have we have one running because we want to integrate with the block clock so you can see stats there.
Oh, nice. So you won the block. You're telling us you're the one who found the block.
No, that's right. I wish. I told folks internally that if we won the block, we would donate the money. People were not happy about it. And all right, yeah. So anyways, I have a few more coming. Like those things are fun. Lottery mining is fun, and I'm actually looking forward to using when it gets colder, to just heat up the environment.
Yeah.
Project Spotlight. Proton Privacy launches Proton Wallet, a open source E2E encrypted and self-custodial Bitcoin wallet. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this project.
Well, before we get into the mixed feelings, it's built on BDK. So this was part of the BDK, like superpowered.
So it is super cool to see a company that has 70 million users bring in a wallet for them to use with the heart in the right place, right? Like absolutely no doubt. Now, this has major blockchain.info wallet vibes on like how it's built, how it's set up, and the dangers of it. So is it great to have it? You also need an email to use it. So it's like, it's not very private. Like there's a lot of trade-offs that I'm not very happy about it. So reasons why I would not be recommending to people. I also find the whole like private email thing a whole LARP as well. I love the project. I love the heart is in the right place. This is a website with everybody wearing masks on the company pictures. So keep that in mind. How do you guys feel about this wallet? Like, I can't be the only one.
So, there's some trade-offs in it. I've just accepted a mode of like, I kind of give everybody a little bit of grace for their first couple of releases. Like the first thing that you go to market with is very rarely like the big vision of the thing. I'm probably not going to be putting any serious money into it. I'm not like steering any of my friends or family into it. But there's a huge portion of people who might try this or use this who otherwise wouldn't have any exposure to like non-custodial Bitcoin or to like a good Bitcoin wallet outside of just like putting it on an exchange. So, it seems like they're like saying a lot of the right things. I think that they're doing a lot of things right. They're making some trade-offs. Like we'll see if it's the right move. I think there's going to be lots of different shapes of Bitcoin wallets for different people. So it's something that I'm keeping an eye on. And I really like that, an email provider that a lot of people who would be aligned with Bitcoin if they got the right exposure to it, are using this email provider. So I'm excited about it, but I'm probably not a user of it, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on it.
I put it in the same bucket as people who are like longtime Bitcoiners, listeners of this podcast. We are not the target audience for the Proton Mail.
Exactly.
Just like we're not the target audience for something like the Bitkey, right?
Yeah.
But as an onboarding funnel, it's really well done. And as I said before, I think this speaks to the power of having something like Bitcoin Dev Kit out in the wild, because the Proton Mail guys are super busy working and maintaining their own very successful product. They're not going to go learn public-private key cryptography implementation to go homebrew their own wallet. And the fact they can lift and shift using Bitcoin Dev Kit, built on top of all of the crypto primitives that all of our Bitcoin wizards have kind of cobbled into one package, is just a really great way to show how opening these tools can enable greater adoption and use cases elsewhere.
And from a UX perspective, I feel like this is like fresh information for us, or fresh ideas.
100%.
I've been talking with Mutiny, the idea of like trying to pay a person. Like something we discovered in Mutiny is a lot of people don't know how to like copy and paste an invoice or an address.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
So the idea that you could send to an email is definitely a step in the right direction, and hopefully something that
it's funny.
maybe not this, but we could find a standard eventually to send to something like an email.
So about 10 years ago, we created a way for you to send Bitcoin over email, right? Like, and the other person receiving it would claim it. And so you'd be removed from your UTXOs, right, into a new UTXO, and then the other person could claim it on the other end with just a pin into their CoinKite.com wallet. And we found that greatly incentivized people into stealing people's email passwords so they could go and steal those vouchers. It was pretty wild.
I mean, Paul, I guess like as the token UX person on the call, I think like Bitcoin's always had this problem where one of the innovations was debundling identity from payments. Like that's an incredible innovation of Bitcoin. And a lot of our UX problems is trying to reinsert identity back into Bitcoin, like for payments and like clean UX. And the Proton Mail guys took one approach of it because they already run an email company. It's a native way for them to think about identity already.
You have to, even if you have perfectly separated these things, you have to message somehow. You have to transmit this information to your target entity somehow.
Yeah.
Well, and like, on Paul's point about this is new information, like I think one of the challenges that the Bitcoin kind of like wallet ecosystem has backed itself into is like a lot of us build features for people who are already in Bitcoin and who are like obsessed with Bitcoin and like myopically focused on Bitcoin. And it's hard to take those blinders off and to think about like, what do normies actually care about? And I think a lot of people on like Bitcoin Twitter will pontificate all day about like, oh, people have to have this, that, and some other like super obscure feature that like doesn't actually matter to like normies. And this is like a Bitcoin wallet that's not targeted at ideological Bitcoiners. This is like a Bitcoin wallet that's targeted at Proton Mail users who need a way to send money securely over the internet, right? And so, I hope that the wallet is successful with that, cohort of users, and that we can learn more about what people outside of Bitcoin actually want out of Bitcoin wallets.
Yeah, it's such a hard conversation to have on Twitter as well, because see, like, you can't have this conversation compartmentalized based on the intended audience, right? Because they get sort of hijacked in 50 different ways. You can use the same device, with different people of different sort of like levels, with different levels of security, right? And different needs in different locations with different risks. And achieve that by using slightly differently, right? But then you can't have the conversation because everybody just goes like, well, this is not good enough, toss it in the garbage. Right? It's pretty brutal, and that frustrates most project maintainers of most projects.
One just really quick note as it comes across the mind, like the idea you have to coordinate. Someone went and started doing, I saw this at the Rust Summit. Paul, I'm not sure if you got to see this guy. This guy, Andreas, built a product that's built on BDK and NDK. And basically, they use Nostr for some of the coordination for the descriptors and the PSBTs.
Mm.
I know it's open. We're waiting for like double ratchet and the end-to-end encryption to be fully dialed in. But I just dropped it in the chat. It's called Bitcoin Safe. Pretty cool. It just does 2 of 3 multisig, and it does. You can actually embed a chat to talk to the other signers if you're doing distribution of like keys to like manage like a sum of money that isn't just yours on your own. And an interesting way, I think, in the long run, as we get the encryption stuff dialed in, using something like a Nostr that already is leveraging public-private key pairs to be able to do this coordination is an interesting design space that I've been talking about for a while, that clients should be Nostr, like wallets could be Nostr clients. And someone's starting to now poke around with it. So I know it's still early days, but just want to give that out as a shout out to the project to kind of fix the identity loop within the wallets.
Just putting this out there, consider Nostr keys disposable and start creating UX that's based on the idea that you can have multiple identities and just dispose them after you use, right? Just burn them.
Yep.
And then you don't have to worry about identity being stolen or the privacy issue that you have with Nostr.
Ephemeral identity.
Exactly. People should really consider that and create little protocols to give you a new identity, for example. So that when you have a contact that you want to send money to, for you to do the payment coordination, maybe you create a new identity, you give it to them, right? Like there's a lot of that work done in a Simple X. They're super high privacy setup. So anyways, just consider that when you're thinking about your designs. Lastseed, CLI tool to calculate the last seed word and entropy. Displays the possible last seed words from 11, 14, 17, 20, and 23 words entropy. It is also displayed and can be pasted into Ian Coleman, BIP39, or similar tools. Dictionary, the Bitcoin, comprehensive guide to Bitcoin terminology. Octojoin, PayJoin with no interactions between sender and recipient. That's cool.
Octojoin is by our favorite floppy disk guy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
of course. Argon BWG, border wallet generator, live demo. BitForge Nano, innovative open source Bitcoin miner designed for home use. Geyser page. Bitaxe Satellite, about research and development into an integrated system that will allow Bitaxe BTC miner to communicate via satellite with public pools. Cool.
I'm realizing that, like, for the BitX, like, you could be, because you're already doing a long shot, and for the most part, you're not trying to hyper optimize fees. You could probably do a lot of that as like when the block gets found, you get one new template and you just do a bunch of suboptimal grinding on your side. You don't, like, since you're not a mining pool trying to like hyper like optimize.
You don't care. It could be empty blocks.
It could be an empty block, exactly, right? So you could totally just kind of like. So all you need is like the new block hash, and you can just keep on grinding. And so you don't need low latency. You could be super high latency of like on the order of seconds, which would never be sustainable.
No, you still got to get the block out fast.
Well, you need to get the block when you find it. Yes.
Yeah.
You absolutely need to get that out fast. But on the download side, you don't have to be pulling every couple of like fractions of a second to get the most optimal mempool.
What's the wattage pull from that? It's like, it's low. Do you guys have off the top of your... Because I have a feeling you can do off of like a small little solar panel.
10 to 25 watts is what I got on the initial.
There you go. That's nothing. So you could totally put a little solar panel and only mine during the day. Just leave it on the Wi-Fi in a tree.
That's a really good idea.
Right? Like, just spread them around.
We actually, at Bitcoin Park, we have an open Bitaxe, and it's King of the Hill rules. So whoever, like, the login's public, so anyone can just go SSH into the Bitaxe and then change to your address. So everyone's always, so it's an open, like, everyone just walks through every day, and everyone's constantly re-swapping and swapping and like out to get their address on the Bitaxe.
You haven't built a little script on a server that just goes and checks, and yeah, there you go.
That's my alpha.
There you go. And then break the SSH on the way out.
Yeah.
All right. PyBLOCK, new solo mining pool. PyBLOCK is a nonprofit project charging 0.4% fee and does not require registration KYC.
I wonder how it's different from CK pool. Because like the CK dev's been around forever with this stuff, and he charges, I thought he charged around, maybe he charges more than 40 bips, and maybe that's why they're trying to compete on price.
Yeah. Roxom, Bitcoin-denominated markets for stocks, ETFs, commodities, and more.
Huh. I like that for there's a bunch of websites that show the prices of different commodities or different financial instruments over time against Bitcoin, which is always just a really fun chart. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Sailor has that, right? He compares everything to Bitcoin price. And just to close the loop, CK Pool charges a 2% fee. So you save
so that's
1.6%.
5x.
Yeah. Which I guess as software is probably going to commoditize to zero.
Yes. All right. Privacy and other related projects. We've added one more, Reticulum Mesh Chat and RNS as well to this. So they have a new release, version 1.8.0. A bunch of stuff changed. I'm not going to get into it. You guys should check out this project. This is how we do it when shit really truly hits the fan or nuclear holocaust is going to be through NomadNet on Reticulum network.
It works over LoRa.
Everything.
Cool.
You can use it on HS.
sweet.
And it's encryption first, it's privacy first. Like it is the product of people who use radios. M17 project also added to the list as something else I want people to keep on paying attention. Revision 1.0.
You should really do a panel with like Bitcoin radio nerds.
There isn't that many. I can't find
Yeah,
people.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's
It's
like
just MVK.
all four of you can get on a pod for 3 hours and then be done with it. Yeah.
You should do it over public radio.
So I'm just essentially just slowly trying to nerd snipe a few into ham radio, you know, like,
Yeah.
because it is magic. Anyway, so M17 project is a alternative to DMR, to D-Star, and to Fusion FM, which are all three closed projects, and protocols should be open. So this is really cool. And these guys found a Chinese manufacturer to put their protocol in a chip, so they can ship a radio with the protocol already in it, so they don't have to hack it. So it's slowly gaining some momentum.
Just to be clear, this is like digital information over very long range radio. Is that the
No, so this, well, you can use it on HF, but this one is more for mid range, short range. So, for example, any VHF, UHF bands are very common for this mode. So think line of sight or just beyond a little bit of line of sight. So repeaters and things like that. So think about like police radios, EMS radios, all these things use this sort of like kind of bands for their comms. Very useful in a city. You can have citywide on a single repeater.
Is this similar spectrum to LoRa, or
No.
Is this like a free spectrum that people can use?
Yeah, no. So this is on ham radio bands.
Okay.
So you need a license. However, you can use this protocol on license-less bands as well, like a spectrum.
Okay.
And LoRa is great, but it's not what people think it is. It's very limited, extremely limited, and it sucks for many things. LoRa is great for like paging or sensors.
Or like telemetry. If you have like
Telemetry,
sensors, you need to send like a couple bytes a kilometer, then LoRa is great for that, but it's insanely low bandwidth.
Yes. And also, so for example, things like MeshNet, the way their protocol topology works is it cannot handle too many people using it. For example, you just break. So when it comes to radio and radio sort of limitations, like there's the trade-offs, like chart is like, it drops off very fast. So you need multi-modes to achieve different things. There's no sort of winner takes all. We're all spoiled with the internet that we think like, you only need one pipe to resolve everything. So there is no winner takes all when you're doing decentralized comms. You need them all for different things. But yeah, so take a look at that project. Project Spotlight, LTOR, incentivize high bandwidth Tor network using Lightning Network. That's a cool project. Very interesting.
Well, I saw him demo this at Pleb Lab, and I think he just won the hackathon prize at the Bitcoin conference.
Cool. Boosts. Thanks to everyone who streamed sats, and shout outs to the top boosters. Sidor. Only since Satoshi found digital gold, any real liberty can exist. Phew. Is this another seed guy? I think it's another seed. Easy21. He fell asleep. Vic, keep it up. If me friend dear, I hear Mr. Raw, I must be a boost. I must boost. Gary Krause, Whiskey Company sponsoring a sleepy aid. Donley fund the competition. That would be kind of cool. Dubravko, I'm excited to tell NVK that there is a Raspberry Pi based module that connects to Flipper Zero to make gaming possible. Neat. Bencoin, great podcast. Continuaire, drink every time NVK brings up Raspberry Pi. You're going to get drunk, sir. Plebhodo, always worth listening to, although after normies seem even stupider. Not sure they're going to cope with what is coming. Thanks, NVK and all. Thank you, guys. All right. So, Lightning plus L2 plus. I wanted to have Mutiny news as the first topic here, since we have Paul. Paul can talk a little bit about the past, the middle, and the future. Paul to the future.
Let's see. Yeah, Mutiny Wallet is shutting down. You want me to just read the whole blog post?
No, just give your take. People who listen to this pod already read the blog post.
Yeah, let's say, from my perspective, I feel like Mutiny Wallet specifically, and just trying to separate, Mutiny, the company, the people, the idea out from the wallets that we built, which is like a Lightning node in the browser that we later added Fediment support to as well. I think it was at a bit of a dead end for a few reasons. I think it ended up very complex. We were always trying to fight that complexity and trying to make things really easy to use. But I think in some sense we made some like sharp, pointy technology almost too easy to use. So you'd have people using Mutiny who didn't really know what they were doing. And that's, kind of our fault. Of how we messaged the wallet. And so people who really knew what they were doing really appreciated Mutiny Wallet. And we've gotten a lot of love, and that feels really good after announcing that we're shutting down. And to be clear, it's always been MIT open source, and you can already self-host Mutiny Wallet. And during this shutdown period, we're just going to make it better for self-hosting. So people who really love it and really know what they're doing are not going to lose access to Mutiny. But there's enough sharp edges for, self-custodial Lightning channels, especially when you're doing it in a web browser. And then also, Fediment stuff, which we adopted very early. And that was really fun to like be kind of like the really, early beta testers of this really great protocol. But, we've also hit some, rough edges with that. And so it just kind of sucked that, these rough edges kept on popping up and poking users who were not expecting them. Like they were like Wallet of Satoshi refugees, just want like a really easy
very
to use
different
wallet.
Experience.
Yeah, and they're like, "What is the?" I thought I understood Lightning, but now you said that there's this channel thing. Like, like they thought understanding Lightning meant like they understand that like an invoice is different than an address or something. So like it's a lot of lessons learned there. But so, anyways, we're winding down the instance of Mutiny Wallet that we host, and we're basically going to take our technology that we built to make Mutiny possible. Like a really good example is recently Tony wrote a post on how we did blinded authentication tokens, which is taking this kind of eCash ideas and using them for more general like authentication. So technology like that. Also, how we did this storage sync so that you could open up the wallet on any device and it would sync like actual Lightning node state, which is, historically pretty hard to do. Technology like that is if you are, a company in space, definitely reach out to us, maybe give us a couple weeks to chill and, find hobbies, but
Ham radio.
After that, like definitely I'm going to become a great ham radio enthusiast, and I'm going to do it all with a Raspberry Pi. And, but then after that, reach out to us if you see some tech that you think that like we could be helpful to you. If you're building like, privacy or freedom tech or, Bitcoin stuff. Cause we think that's kind of our strong suit. And we know we like shipped a lot of great tech. But I think the consumer expectation mismatch ended up being bad enough that we kind of wanted to actually make it stop.
I mean, we had some conversations about the stuff, right? Like somebody needs to build Bazel. Bazel is this utopic idea of a very consumer-friendly wallet where everything just works, but you have the magic of the super hard tech that you guys were building, right? And then people feel like they are, using Venmo or something. Reality is like these projects are ginormous, right? So, and you need to find a beachhead early with users on something that just works to their pain, so they keep on using it, and you can build on top, as opposed to fighting the technology, which is very hard, right? I mean, Lightning is fantastic for like custodial, for example. It's very difficult non-custodial. So, it really is an uphill battle. We were talking about, we need Lightning VPS, let's call it, for CoinKite. I don't want to run Lightning, and I don't want to use custodial Lightning.
Yeah.
So I need somebody who just offers Lightning as a service where I own the instance, is my coins at risk, but somebody else manages it. Like, it's like I all I want is like an API, for my store to interact with. I do not want to understand how Lightning works. And somebody just keeps it up to date, keeps it, going, and uses our coins for liquidity, so that you don't have to go and find some crazy LSP thing that requires KYC either.
I think, this is what you're asking for is a great example of what is kind of hard in this industry right now, because you're asking for something that is, a lot of people who want something like that are fine just using the custodial version of it.
Not until they figure out, because nobody serious is using their shopping carts, because it costs 1% to 2%. And if you add fees and whatever else, like, it's more expensive than credit card.
I'm not saying what we have right now is the perfect win. I'm just saying that like there's a lot of investment to make something that is self-custodial have the UX of the of the custodial.
Yeah,
like that's really hard. And so when you are driving in that direction, you're it's just that's been the big challenge. I feel like that's kind of become the narrative of my life, is like, I think I grew up in the Bitcoin culture of, I'm going to take worse UX in exchange for better, cypherpunkness, and now as we're trying to grow things, we're running into a lot of users who are not willing to make those sacrifices. So do you, as a Bitcoin company or a developer, do you drive hard at the very small number of people who are willing to take some sacrifices in order for more cypherpunk? Or do you, drive hard, in like the Proton direction, like, hey, we want this to be so normie friendly, and we're going to actually make sacrifices on how cypherpunk it is to achieve that.
To all the devs and entrepreneurs out there, okay, I always say, like, go try to sell to business instead of to consumer. Because like businesses make money, and they're okay spending some money to solve problems, right? While consumers, you're often fighting, you're fighting UX constantly, because consumers don't know what they're doing, generally in the broad sense, and they're not willing to pay for anything, right? So it's like, and you're fighting companies that find VC very cheaply to also outcompete you. By just doing everything for free too. So, try to solve businesses' pains for a fee. It's endless, the market for that.
Yeah, I spent more than a decade kind of building infrastructure services and selling to like enterprises. And one of the big things that's different about like B2B versus B2C is, when you're selling to consumers, a lot of consumers are willing to spend more time than they are willing to spend money. So you end up kind of like fighting against freeware or open source things, or like hacks that people make on top of, spreadsheets and Siri shortcuts or whatever. When you are selling to enterprises or businesses generally, like what they're trying to do is they're trying to drive down total cost of ownership for whatever the solution is. So if you can convince somebody that like, hey, for my license fee or for my per usage API fee, I can save you a head count.
Yes.
Or I can save you 3 FTEs. That's a very easy sale.
That's the math. I mean, I just gave HighCharts a bunch of money to have their perpetual license. Like that's $2,000.
Yep.
So that I can upgrade the charts on Bitcoin treasuries, right? Like it's like boom, and it's like it's open with commercial restriction, right? Like, but it doesn't matter. I would have paid them anyways because like they update the software, right? Like
sure.
And it's like it's such like a no brainer because like the cost of us making D3.js or something like to look pretty.
Saving $100,000 by just giving them $3,000.
Yes,
like literally,
it's a dev. Like, are you saving? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. To the level that we want Lightning to be internally, the same way we have. Because see, our store is all like internal code, right? And it's very specific, and we have a certain expectation of availability, and so things don't break, right? So with Bitcoin Online base layer, it's reasonably simple for you to run a store, right? That's safe, secure, and available. Now with Lightning, if we were to do that, I've tried, we would need probably to hire 2 people that both make, more than $100,000 a year, right?
Yep.
So it's much better to just give, Paul, like very good money per month that as long as the math is better than credit cards, right? To do this. And then that's how VPS started, right? Amazon stole their market, but it's still out there. I mean, there's a lot of VPS out there. They print money. I'm not saying you should do this, but just it's like that's like the business, the very basic business plan of SaaS that people pursue with businesses because businesses are willing to pay whatever it takes to not hire another person.
Yep. So yeah, B2B SaaS with the bros is kind of the Mutiny pivot.
Yes.
I do want to say just huge thank you to everybody, just recently for the support, but also everybody, tried Mutiny, who supported us along the way. Like it's been really awesome to build and be like kind of for this brief moment, kind of like the bleeding edge of absolutely every technology.
I mean, I just want to put that out there that I was the first check investment on Mutiny.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
I use Mutiny. I'm still using it. I'll have to either self-host or migrate somewhere else. I'm a huge fan. It's been really slick. I use it all the time. Bitcoin Park, buying my seltzers and whatever else there. And might go to like Lightning payment stuff. It's great software. The whole work using Wasm to have a progressive web app to be able to load everything and sidestep the app store, I think really set a really great standard for being able to execute cool user experiences. And I probably was more on the technical side. So I didn't find those sharp edges to be sharp edges for me. Was a proud subscriber to Mutiny Plus. I'm going to have to find new ways to find my smug satisfaction from elsewhere. So if anyone has any hookups on how to find some smug self-satisfaction, let me know.
The real smug satisfaction will come if like Android and Apple like ban Bitcoin and we have to like actually resurrect Mutiny just so we have a browser wallet.
Yeah. That's funny, right? Like for me, the biggest barrier is the lockdown mode.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. There's a Safari bug. You can't iOS. There's like a certain iOS update. This is just a great epitome of like everything that we dealt with Mutiny.
Yes.
Is the update from 17.3 to 17.4 broke iOS's ability to add exceptions in lockdown mode for apps where basically Wasm is now blocked in apps and in in like the embedded browsers and in just the regular browser. You can't add exceptions to Wasm.
But like it's in between quotes broke. I mean, like it's on purpose because that's how they get owned.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, maybe it is. Like I filed a bug in WebKit and they haven't closed the bug, so they're not like disagreeing with me outright that it's a bug.
They won't close it.
But yeah, it like broke other apps as well. Broke like some note-taking apps, broke some Bitwarden stuff.
By the way, I highly recommend people running their devices in lockdown mode. Life is like much more pleasant, except for the lack of Mutiny.
Yeah. Well, now you don't have to. That's what we're really, the gift we're giving everybody here is you don't have to make that decision for long. You got end of year.
I mean, like you guys accrued so much Lightning knowledge and so much code that sort of like does a lot of the hard stuff for Lightning that like, I have no doubt you guys are going to find another path for all this IP really. So good on you.
Appreciate that.
All right. Fedi had their Apple style announcement with even a one more thing at the end. Highly recommend people watch it. It's great and lots of lols too. They finally launched officially, I guess. So go check it out. Albi Hub, one-click install node that lets you connect to Bitcoin apps with Nostr Wallet Connect. We use Albi for the podcast because all the Pod 2.0 stuff only works with Keysend, and none of the people I use wallets with support Keysend. So it's a mix there.
Interesting.
I really wish they'd move on to give me a native code. I don't like the web stuff. Desktop, native, which is shit market. So I understand why people don't. But can we please go back to native apps on all sort of desktop platforms? Those are uncensorable. Nutlife.lol. Pablo didn't have enough to do, so he released Nutlife.lol. Counts and displays all nut zaps sent recently, equivalent to zaplife.lol by Pablo.
Never underestimate the power of having a bunch of dick jokes as part of your product naming.
Absolutely. I mean, Cashew really stole the thunder there. It's a fantastic project. It really is. Makes things less ruggable, or makes rugging more pleasant. Free banking, baby. It's not going away. Software releases and project updates. Oh, yeah, there is Mutiny. Phoenix, Android and iOS updates. Sorry, I got some shit recently by somebody saying that I just skipped through all the Lightning stuff. Guys, it's just that the Lightning stuff is already like at the 2-hour mark here. It's very hard. It's not my expertise. We're lucky to have Paul, which is an expert on Lightning here. And, the guys are very knowledgeable on the topic. But, it's just, this is a pod where I spent 2 hours talking with great people. And, I'm a base layer guy. Just think of me as a boomer in that sense. And it's not to the detriment of Lightning, it's just is. Start a lightning.review. So Phoenix updated. Phoenix is fantastic. The Bolt 12 stuff really works like magic. Very happy to see the stuff moving.
Yeah, I will say, I don't know if you guys have talked about this last time or whatever, but the BIP 353 and things that sending money to things that look like an email address is now a very crowded
space.
I think Venn diagram is the wrong word for it. It's like it's a camped namespace. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a bad situation where people don't actually know how to send money to each other because everybody's kind of reusing the same idea. So we're gonna kind of have to figure these things out, and hopefully, yeah, maybe the XKCD thing of come up with one standard that finally unifies all the standards. But we got to figure out something because there's too many ways in Bitcoin to send people money now, and so there's great innovation underlying this, and it's really exciting stuff. But it is turning into a UX nightmare.
But we haven't even started. Bitcoiners are just discovering a nascent industry growing up. Every single part of every single industry that's mature has 50 standards, and then you have groups of vendors that adopt differing levels of overlapping standards. We strive for having best interoperability, but it's not there's no perfect.
I mean, okay, the way I think about it is I know how to email somebody. If I have their email address, I know how to email them.
Yeah, but email just broke because Google decided to enforce a bunch of stuff, so you can't use their SMTP anymore.
Sure. So there's a lot of problems with email. So a lot of us use messaging apps. If I want to message, there's 30 different options, and it's a nightmare. And so we just there are worlds that exist that don't have one interoperable standard, and people still live and get through the day, but it's not as cool as it's not as seamless as when there is actually one working interoperable standard.
Yeah, it's just get used to it. Look at barbecue QR, right? It's far superior, works much better on the hardware, in my opinion. No, it's true. It does work better on the hardware because it was hardware people who created that standard, while the other standard was created by software people that have different requirements. Right? This is the problem, right? Like, it's normal to have different people with different requirements create standards that are not necessarily best for everybody, right? But it's everywhere now. There is like both standards are in most wallets, so it's okay. Rijndael, you have a hard stop.
Yeah, in just a few minutes.
Okay. All right. Is there any updates here, scrolling down, that you need to have an opinion on?
Taproot assets went mainnet today. I know I'm not Rijndael though.
Yeah, there's a new standard on mainnet now for sending shitcoins over Lightning. It's very exciting. I had 4 people send me a tweet that there's somebody who's now doing Tether over it. I have no idea, who's holding the bag or what the relationship between Tether and this system is. I just saw the tweet, but there's going to be a lot on the timeline about stuff over Taproot assets, which is exciting.
I mean, any startup's dream is to have Tether infinite capital backing them, right? So I can see the drive there.
Just to clarify what you're saying, like, who's holding the bag? I think that's the important thing with Taproot assets, right? Like, it's not, you're not trusting Lightning, and you're not trusting the asset that you're moving. You're trusting the person who's connecting Lightning to the asset you're moving.
Right, because like this doesn't look like Tether Tether the company is issuing Tether the asset on Lightning. What this looks like, and I've looked at this for 30 seconds, right? So I'm probably going to be wrong.
My life savings is in it.
What it looks like is there's a company that's got a big bag of like USDT on some other network, like ETH or Tron or something. And then they're issuing an asset on Taproot assets. And so I can send Rob a Taproot asset token over Lightning that is redeemable in theory for a Tether on some other blockchain, which is then redeemable for $1 equivalent with the Tether company, right? So there's sort of like, how do you move tokens over Lightning? And that's what Taproot assets is concerned with. What is the value or the backing of those tokens is like outside the scope of the protocol, and you've got to have some issuer that's willing to back that. And it looks like there's a company that's doing that with Tether now.
Yay, Tether. You can buy your own treasuries. Put them in a bag.
You can.
Yeah. Are they still bearer assets like on paper? No.
I doubt it's on paper. You can go to like a treasury website and like make an online account and buy treasuries. That's like a thing you can do.
No, I know you can buy digitally, but like I knew like way back you could buy like the stuff in paper. Same with bearer stocks.
You used to be able to bearer bonds. You used to be able to.
Yeah.
But now they have their own blockchain at the Fed.
Right.
The Treasury.
That's how they add more zeros to your account if you're a bank without like talking. Liquidity injection. By the way, the financial system is really weird in this last couple of weeks when you're doing stuff with brokerages or moving money around or doing stuff like something really, really bad snapped, but they're really covering everything up in a very high quality way as they always do.
Yeah, Bitcoin never goes down. It's always been like a pretty fun meme, and it just gets
better and better.
It ages very gracefully.
Yeah. All right, guys. I mean, why don't we then end this? So, any final thoughts, Rob?
Final thoughts. Open standards win the day. Nothing ever happens in Bitcoin, and stay humble and stack sats. Mr.
Rijndael.
Stay humble and stack cats.
Oh boy. Mr. Paul.
I'm fully for the great script restoration. By the way,
cool.
Just so everybody knows.
My take is just very simple. Check signatures. All right, guys. Thank you so much for giving 2 hours of your time. We're 4 minutes of it. We're just talking about all the things we already know about Wallet Xfield stuff. And very cool by Dark and Skippy. It's nice to see. Even though things are not necessarily the end of the world, very grateful for researchers too. Like getting out there, spending all this time creating these attack surfaces, because aside from the drama, they eventually get integrated into the vendor stack, right? Which is something that everybody wins. So with that, everybody have a great day. And check out the next episode where we do a panel on just wallets. It's going to be 3 hours of that.
It's going to be awesome.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.